Hello everyone, I am Krooked and I do stuff, and this is Unscripted, the series where I take a completely unscripted look at games and give it a 1 through 10 rating. And today we're playing the sequel to one of my favorite games of all time, Mega Man X2. So the way this starts off, I mean, look at it, it looks fantastic. It starts off with more action than Mega Man X did. So you take that out, and you'll notice right at the get-go you get the ability to dash. So they didn't take away all of your abilities from the last game. They only took away like your armor and helmet upgrade, which, I mean, the helmet upgrade wasn't really worth much anyway. And then they left you with the dash. The in-universe explanation for why X doesn't have any of his powers is he thought, okay, war's done, we don't have to do this anymore, so I'm gonna give up all the weapons that I got. He does that every time, basically, and it's never actually over. He starts keeping his stuff in Mega Man X4, but that's still a ways off. So this game honestly looks almost identical to its predecessor. Everything in X2 looks like X in terms of what came from X to X2. So you won't see it in this video because it happens way, way, way later in the game, and it would take me a little bit longer than I think anyone would want to watch to actually get to the point. But Zero has a slightly updated sprite. We have some new baddies with Surges, Agile, and Violin. They're Maverick Hunters, so, or not Maverick Hunters, X Hunters. So they're kind of the counterpart to X being a Maverick Hunter. We have a completely new layout, and we don't have the ability to switch between the looks anymore, so you can't like look at map or stats or just have a picture. It kind of shows you all of that when you're on it anyway. You can turn it off, like I just did. But yeah, so it kind of shows you everything, and you get to pick where you want to go. Everyone has orders that they like to go in first, especially in this game. For me, it really just depends on my mood and who I want to get through first. Usually, though, I will go with Wheel Gator. The reason why is, like the original Mega Man games, if you didn't play or watch my video on Mega Man X, the original Mega Man games had you beat bosses in a certain order because every boss was weak to another one. Not only does this keep up that trend, but it expands on it a little bit by having areas that you can only get into or access by beating certain bosses first. Mega Man X kind of did it, but this game really leaned into it. So it is possible to jump from that right side over to the left without the boot parts that you get in this game. It's just really hard to do, and I'm not very good at it. So going through, you'll notice that a lot of the level designs are a lot more advanced than they were in Mega Man X. Like Mega Man X, they were kind of like, okay, let's keep this very Mega Man-y and add some verticality to it. This game went kind of all out. It gave you ride armor that you get to use on your own, only in certain parts, unfortunately. But it was vertical, it's horizontal, there's so much here that the original X game didn't have, but you can see like where they were inspired from the previous game for this one. Like having the ride armor, that was clearly because everyone was like, oh man, Vile was super cool with his ride armor, it'd be really cool if the player got that. Why don't we put it in? You know, it's not often that a sequel takes the original and just decides to improve on it in every way that it can. As the Mega Man X series aged, every subsequent title kind of sold not as well as the previous one. I think it was due to a change in gaming habits. At the time, a lot of traditional RPGs were becoming a lot more beloved and sought after, and the platformer genre kind of died out a little. And because of that, the games didn't really get the recognition they deserved later on. So Mega Man X sold really well. Mega Man X2 didn't sell as well. Mega Man X3 didn't sell as well. I think 4 started popping back up, but yeah. So when we got to X2, you know, a whole bunch of people didn't play it. And then they also didn't get any chances to play it for quite some time because games that had limited releases, kind of like this did and kind of like X3 did, you didn't always see them in stores. And we didn't have the internet to just be able to buy a game that we wanted. So we kind of had to rely on what the store had. So with this, it's wild because just a lot of people haven't played it compared to the first one. As you can see, graphically, even though I said everything with X looks, you know, like X, everything else is so much more advanced. Look at the blood oil going down in Wheel Gator's stage, and look at Wheel Gator. He has so much more detail than any of the bosses from X. It's wow. And there's so much more in this. There's more secrets, more hidden areas. Oh, this is going to be close. Okay. They kind of improved a little bit on the boss destruction. Some of the bosses, if you use certain weapons on them, even have special animations of how they die. None of that is in Mega Man X at all. It has destruction of the level and the boss that changes things up. There's things like Crystal Centipede, who causes slowdown, like intentionally. Or not Crystal Centipede, Crystal Snail. Then there's Magna Centipede over here, who will actually cause you to not be able to do certain actions. There's an enemy that can track what you've done, and it can use that to become stronger. Morph Moth completely changes form mid-fight and becomes significantly harder. There is so much in this game. Like, I think that the only reason this game isn't as beloved as Mega Man X is because it hasn't been played as much. But when we're talking about the controls, it has the same controls as Mega Man X, but improved things such as ride armors and ride vehicles. When we're talking bosses, all of the bosses in X2, in my opinion, are way more fun to fight than the bosses in X. The bosses in X can be a little bit more predictable, and they're a bit more classic to the series, but the ones here, they're really fun to fight, and you actually have to think about them. As a kid, I never had to worry about the bosses in X. I could beat most of them by myself. In X2, I had to get help from my brother most of the time just because they're a little bit more complex, and they're just enough of a more complex boss to make it more of a challenge. The final boss fight with Sigma in this one is absolutely insane. It's... I can't spoil it, but he takes on a particular power set that's a little bit of a berserker. Just everything in this game improves on it so much. Even the storytelling in this game is better. And it's just wild to me that no one talks about this as much. Or if they do, they don't rate it as high. And I think it's because They just have nostalgia for X, and they're afraid of fighting bosses they're not familiar with. But when it comes down to it, in every way, X2 is better than X. And if I remember right, I gave Mega Man X a 10 out of 10. Which means it's really rare, but I think that Mega Man X2 deserves a solid 11 out of 10. And if you like the Mega Man X games as much as I do, go ahead and hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button so that way you never miss an episode of Unscripted. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever a new episode comes out. And if you want to support the channel a little bit more, go ahead and check out my Patreon. Link is in the description down below. Other than that, I do want to thank you for watching Unscripted, and I will see you on the next episode.